Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I apologize, we're running a little bit behind today because Mike had the 10-day player transactions up, and I saw a name that I know that I had not added to our player database, and I freaked out for a second. So Justin Tillman has been added to our player database, and this is my life now. I spend all day just looking at the transactions log and adding players that I've never heard of to come up with player baselines for. It's exhilarating, truly. Yeah. Mike, I don't even know how many games we have on the schedule today. Were there like 9, theoretically, maybe so. 9
Something
still?
Like
We're waiting on San Antonio and Miami to figure out if they're going to play basketball tonight or if San Antonio is going to host a scrimmage with players playing from the San Antonio G League team in Miami Heat uniforms. That could happen as well. How are you doing on this fine Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't even know what day it was. I was like, oh, OKC's in Phoenix tomorrow, and they're there today. It's all just a blur, but feeling pretty good. Yeah, yesterday was like the biggest 8-game slate ever, I feel like, with all the stuff we had to do. But yeah, it's just crazy, man. Hopefully we're through it, and hopefully Justin Tillman doesn't play. We'll see. It's a lot of players there. I mean, we'll talk about it, but Jordan Bell's back, baby. Jordan, that guy should have been signed long ago. He's on the Bulls now.
Okay.
So, he's not a bozo for you.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah, we've been joking. I've been referring to players that I have no information on as bozos because they take me like 30 minutes out of my life to create everything for them. So the code in the ETR NBA Slack is basically, is that guy a bozo or not a bozo or half bozo? Half bozo means I have some data on him, but it's very bad. So yeah, this is the life that we lead these days. This is a health and safety protocols show sponsored by COVID. And the injury report is what we're going to be going through once again today. Let's start with Miami because Miami is just a disaster, like just an absolute disaster. We don't know if they're going to play tonight. This is the ultimate, like, we're going to push ahead and get a game done on the schedule NBA move that I've seen so far. Because the Heat are literally signing guys not based on their basketball acumen, but simply based on their proximity to San Antonio. And right now they're just like raiding San Antonio's G League team with guys who are available so that they can maybe play the game tonight. And seems like a bad idea. I mean, it just doesn't seem like the way that these games should go, and doesn't seem like it's fair to the fans out there who had tickets to go to this game to watch essentially like a scrimmage. But if Miami is able to play this game, what does their starting lineup look like without Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Dwayne Dedmon, KZ Okpala, Max Strus, PJ Tucker, Gabe Vincent? Like, what are we down to for Miami?
Should be, I think, kind of easy, right? It should be Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin at the 4, Marcus Garrett I think would have to start, and then Omer at 7 would be the man in the middle there, and then all the half/full/ non-bozos will be filling out the back end of the rotation. But
the back end
the
headline of the car.
Yeah, the headline would be Tyler Hero in year 7 and Caleb Martin and Duncan Robinson, who Duncan Robinson gets the Duncan Robinson Spurs narrative. Which I always love, which is not a narrative at all. But those guys will be looking at big minutes, man, if they're going to run this at probably an 8-man, because it's probably all they're going to have.
Yeah, if they play this game, it has to be 8 for Miami. Mm-hmm. I don't see a way.
Well, they could sign more people off the Austin Spurs and just because it's a 30-minute drive.
I feel like the Austin Spurs need to leave somebody for the Austin Spurs, right? So. Right. This is like how they did it at the playground where, you got to pick your first like 4 and then the rest of the guys, you play against. So I think this game is in slight jeopardy of being canceled. I really think all indications are the NBA is just really trying to push through this and just like Miami, go take your schedule L. But yeah, this game is one of these games that, as I've talked about on our DFS premium show of late, that you got to be a little bit careful with the other side. And in this case, San Antonio, because we saw San Antonio play like a G League team equivalent in Detroit a few days ago. Derek White played 15 minutes. Like they can get so far ahead that they don't need to play their guys at all. With Miami, it's a situation where they would have such few number of bodies available to play that I think these guys would have to play a lot and you could feel more comfortable. So it's a weird situation where you might look at the scoreboard at the end of the night and see Miami lost by 45, but the better fantasy performances were on Miami's side because they had guys who just had to be out there the whole time.
And they still got some guys. Like, I mean, we saw the couple of teams just decimated, right? But I mean, Tyler Hero is really good. Caleb Martin's underrated. He's the offensive Martin of the Martin twins, so they can score points with him. We saw you at 7. You know, he can make an impact despite how he missed a million putbacks last night, much to my chagrin. Although he still worked out. But those guys could still kind of carry the load. Marcus Garrett's definitely a straight defender. Duncan Robinson's obviously one of the best shooters. So I wouldn't say this is like full-on Raptors, Pistons, like the Pistons roster compared to this Miami roster that's going to be put out there. Sure, it's a road back-to-back. That's a factor, though. But I wouldn't be, quite like, okay, this is done. I think Miami has a chance to hang. Okay. I'm a little bit of a hero stan.
There we go. Moving from one comparison of Spurs opponents that are G League to the other, Detroit Pistons, who I just mentioned, they are still in such a disastrous situation when it comes to the health and safety protocols in terms of number of players that are already ruled out. They keep adding players. I mean, they have the full clown car going right now. So they keep adding players. We saw Derek Walton Jr. last game get added and then off the street start and play 31 minutes, 31 very unproductive minutes. We saw, basically a 9-man rotation that game with really heavy minutes from Sadiq Bey, Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson, Derek Walton in a game they lost by 35. Game that they were never really close. They were down 30 going into the fourth quarter. So I think one of the takeaways is they're just going to play the guys that they want to develop as much as they want, regardless of kind of game environment, it seems like, because Sadiq playing 41 in a game they lost by 35 is just kind of wild. So it's a spot certainly where they're decimated again with injuries. There's no Cade Cunningham, no Jeremy Grant, no Killian Hayes, no Josh Jackson, no Corey Joseph, no Saban Lee, no Trey Lyles, no Kelly Olynyk, no Isaiah Stewart. That's their normal rotation, basically. I mean, that the only guys that are left that are normal rotation players would be Sadiq Bey, and Frank Jackson, and maybe Hamidou Diallo. He's like sometimes in, sometimes out of the rotation. So we're talking about one of the worst teams in the league, normally, when they're fully healthy, now having 2.5 rotation players on their team. I mean, it's really bad. They get the Knicks at home on the second night of a back-to-back tonight. What do you expect Detroit's lineup and rotation to look like tonight?
It should be pretty similar. Derek Walton played 20 first-half minutes before the game got out of hand. He was just so bad. But his competition's a little bit bigger this time because he was legit the only ball handler. And the coach who filled in for Dwayne Casey said that he kind of knows the system. He's from the G League team, and they wanted to kind of develop him and let him kind of run the offense, which indicates, he played that 21st half minutes. But they do add Justin Robinson, who is, not an NBA player, but he's been around.
He's a borderline NBA player.
Yeah,
I mean, he's floated around rosters the last few years.
Yeah, so he's a guy that could threaten Walton, or I don't think he's going to play. Because I thought he was going to play a ton. Like I was saying, like mid-30s, which he was pretty close to if they had the game been closer and he'd not sucked. So he's still tough to play. Like he's just not very good at scoring. He's a good passer, but they'll handle the point guard minutes. Luka Garza is going to have to handle most of the center minutes against Mitch Rob. So I mean, Luka Garza is really slow down there. So this is a pretty good Mitch Robinson spot. Hamidou Diallo is handling the kind of the backup point guard minutes. I don't know if that's going to change with Robinson in the mix, but he'll definitely see some ball handling. He had a lot of ball handling chances in OKC, obviously in Kentucky. So Hamidou Diallo is in a really good spot. Obviously, the minutes are really good. And as you mentioned, Sadiq Bey is playing a freaking ton right now. Yeah. So he's pretty much on the slate whenever. Same with Frank Jackson, who's going to play quite a bit. Hope maybe the Knicks could kind of lay an egg. That they've been prone to do that, coming off a road back-to-back here after beating Minnesota last night. So maybe they could hang, but certainly don't feel confident about it.
Yeah. Chris in chat asking, would Robinson be a half bozo? No, Robinson would actually not be a bozo because I've seen him play in the NBA. I have an understanding of who the player is. So no, he's actually like the dream addition for me. I'm just like moving him around from team to team. Like Isaiah Thomas and James Ennis, who apparently are just going to try to play for all 30 teams in like a 30-week span. In terms of the depth at the center spot, we saw Luka Garza play 20 minutes last game, was really effective in those 20 minutes, but fouled out. Defensively, this is the concern on Luka Garza, is that he just isn't going to be able to hang at the NBA level. But he's got an offensive NBA skill set as like kind of a stretch big. They do have some depth there with Cheick Diallo, who is another one of these. He also fouled out in 19 minutes. Really impressive work by Detroit. He also fouled out, but Cheick's been Diallo has been a very good per minute producer when he's gotten opportunities in the past. It's been a few years since he got those opportunities in the NBA. What do you think their ideal like center split is between Garza and Diallo in terms of those minutes? If these guys aren't fouling.
Yeah, I think they want to play Garza. I think he can get up to like, I think if there's no foul issues,
like low 30s.
Yeah, I think I was going to say 29, 28.
Okay.
So yeah, because I don't think he has the energy to go
the
distance like that. He just isn't in NBA shape. So
yeah,
giving him like I guess the high end would be 4 8-minute stints. So 32 would be like the perfect world. But I just don't think that's really within reach. So maybe 30 on the high side. So there's some upside there. Mitch Robb, maybe he's tired. We know he's had conditioning issues in a back-to-back, but he's looked significantly better though.
Okay. We are moving on to the Hawks, who started the show when I was talking about Justin Tillman and being a name that I hadn't seen before. That was on the transactions they need to add in. They're playing the Bulls, who they played on Monday. So it's a rematch from that game. They have lost more players since this game, though. No Bogdan Bogdanovic, no Gorgui Dieng. And so, once again, really, really thinned out rotation. They did get Trae Young back last game, so they still have Trae Young. They still have Capella. They still have Reddish in terms of guys who are normally in their rotation. They still have Skylar Mays, who is like, an NBA player. He's on the rotation. He's like not in the rotation, but he's on the roster all year long pretty much. And then it gets really thin after that. They do get Wes Iwundu back from protocols, who was in and out real quick. They signed him and he played like 25 minutes, 28 minutes, something like that right away. So I would imagine their main starters I'm envisioning tonight would be Trae, Reddish, Capella, Chandri Brown, who was signed and started immediately and played 30 minutes. And then I think the fifth starter is Skylar Mays or Wes Iwundu with a lean towards Mays. And then I think the other guy is like the sixth man. And then I think after that, the minutes get spread out between the Cat Barbers, Lance Stevensons, Malcolm Hills of the world. I also want to note the Hawks have had a few guys in protocols for a while now. Like we know Kevin Huerter has been close to returning because he keeps tweeting about how he's like one test away essentially. So we know he's somewhat close. They've also had Lou Williams has been in protocols for a while. And there's one other name I'm forgetting now that's been in protocols for a while. And so there just could be players returning to Atlanta. Like we've seen that happen last game on Monday with Trae that we don't know about yet. Anything else you want to add to kind of the Atlanta situation in terms of expectation for tonight against Chicago?
Yeah, it was surprising to me that they put Bogdan on DeMar a lot. So losing him, you'd probably want to put somebody that can defend a little bit, which, I mean, I guess they put Shandy. They put Shandy on him a little bit in the second half, so I feel pretty good about Shandy Brown probably starting. And I don't know, like you're really asking for it if you're putting, Reddish. That's a lot to ask out of Kevin Reddish to score so much and produce on defense. So
yeah, they just don't have.
They just think you kind of have to. So Reddish is going to be really, really busy. Certainly pretty high upside. We saw him play 40 and really chuck. Obviously, without Bogdan, he'd be insanely busy.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to the Grizzlies, where John Konkar, who was like fantasy hero the other night, dropping like 40 fantasy points at basically min price and catching everybody off guard. He's now out for the Grizzlies as well. The Grizzlies are without Dylan Brooks. They're without D'Anthony Melton. They are pretty shorthanded in the backcourt as things go. We saw Ja get up to 34 minutes, which is usually kind of the higher end of where they keep Ja. Usually he's like a 31 to 32 type guy. But now with all these depth issues in the backcourt, I think there are paths here where you can see, like you saw Desmond Bane get up to 37. I think there's paths for some of the main Grizzlies guys to get a little bit higher tonight. What do you think about the Grizzlies rotation tonight without Konkar?
Yeah, I think they kind of got to start slow-mo here, right? We've seen slow-mo in the 3 spot quite a bit. It's a very odd matchup, right? Probably the Lakers going small again against a front court, which could be Kyle Anderson, Jaren Jackson, Steven Adams, like total chess match on how you want to approach it. I think the Lakers stick to their guns as I was writing in matchups, but I think that makes the most sense. and then you could kind of fill in with Shaq Buchanan. We saw him kind of get some garbage time a couple games ago. Obviously not last night against Phoenix, but he would probably crack the rotation. They'd probably play Xavier Tillman as the backup 5 straight through. Killian Tilly would probably play all the non-Jaren Jackson minutes. Tyus would have to get some overlap, I feel like, with John Morant just to fill minutes. So that would mostly be their 5 man, and obviously Brandon Clark would be in the mix as well.
So do you think the issue, the lack of guard depth that they have, that's going to have to slide Kyle Anderson kind of the 3, do you think that takes away their ability to match up with a lot of Jaren at the 5? And because I think when you look at that Lakers lineup of them going small, one of the first concerns that I would have is that Steven Adams' minutes could be down. Xavier Tillman's minutes could be down. Although Xavier, I think, could be a little bit better at handling the switching and different things there. But those guys' minutes could come down, and they might have to play Jaren a little bit more in that. But they don't seem to have the depth on the wings without Zaire Williams, without Dylan Brooks, without D'Anthony Melton to like really pull that off. Do you think that Steven Adams' minutes are secure here despite the matchup? Like, how do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about in matchups. It's like, I mean, they're probably going to put like Stanley Johnson on him or something like that. So, I mean, if they want to dump the ball into him, then, that could be a really good thing to do. But he's not really an offensive player, and it's not really an efficient play offensively. Yeah. So I'm more concerned about the downside personally with Steven Adams. And like you said, it kind of feel like he gets played off the floor.
What do you think those lineups look like if Jaren Jackson moves to the 5, Kyle Anderson moves to the 4? How do they fill out the 3 and the 2? Desmond Bane at the 3, I guess, and then Tyus Jones overlap with Ja? Like, that's probably their best lineup in those situations?
Yep, I think so. So that could be a pretty decent spot for Tyus, but you don't need to go there with the.
No, probably not in DFS. But I'm just trying to think through what a closing lineup might look like for Memphis tonight, and that's one that wouldn't surprise me if that ended up being kind of the closing lineup on it. But I think the takeaway here is there's a really big upside in minutes for Desmond Bane, for Kyle Anderson, because of the matchup and then the lack of kind of backcourt depth as a whole here for Memphis. Okay. Let's move forward with, do we want to cover like any of these, like Hornets, Blazers, Mavs, Suns, like Donovan Mitchell's out for the Jazz still, like anything there that you want to hit on before we get into the actual questionable tags?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay. I kind of just wrote down all the guys. The Blazers are kind of the same.
But Dame's not on the injury report, so that's that's good. We got something. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the guys that are questionable with injuries, because that's actually what the entire purpose of the show originally was, before the Omicron variant took over all of our lives. So Malcolm Brogdon is questionable for Indiana. We have been very skeptical about Malcolm Brogdon's return. It's a re-injury of the Achilles, right, that he's been dealing with. So what do you think the odds are that Malcolm Brogdon returns tonight? We've seen Karis LeVert just be dominant in his absence.
So based on the old, practice watch film, he was in sweats while everyone else was in shorts. So that indicates that he wasn't full practice yesterday. Rick Carlisle said they're hoping that, quote, Mother Nature is on Brogdon's injury and they hope he can play. And then Brogdon mentioned he's still kind of dealing with it and it's day by day. So these are all signs that like this guy's not playing. So I'd be pretty surprised he doesn't play. They did bring in Dwayne Washington, waived Brad Wanamaker, so he may play some backup 1 behind LeVert. And then
they also signed Kiefer Sykes when they waived Brad Wanamaker.
Half bozo. He would be half bozo. He'd be behind Dwayne Johnson. But obviously LeVert, pretty good, great matchup here for LeVert against the Hornets. Could see a big night coming from him.
Could see a big night from LeVert, Sabonis, Turner, like the main Pacers guys, even Duarte. I mean, you can get a lot of threes off against Charlotte. So pretty good spot. This is one of the teams, Indiana, that is not ravaged by health and safety protocols. And it's just sort of a straight injury situation with Brogdon, which we've seen before. I've been commenting on the DFS shows that these are the gimme spots in terms of understanding and playing DFS right now, where this is really good chalk when this happens, because we know how good LeVert is without Malcolm Brogdon. We've seen it a bunch all year. We know how good Sabonis can be without Malcolm Brogdon. We know how good Miles Turner can be. And we've seen how much teams can put up against Charlotte, who plays really, really fast. So I think it's a really good spot to attack tonight with Indiana. Other questionables to monitor tonight, Marcus Smart. He was scratched last game. Boston is another one of these teams that is absolutely decimated. Once again, no Jason Tatum, no Dennis Schroeder, both in health and safety protocols, no Aaron Naismith. When they lost Marcus Smart last game, you saw Peyton Pritchard play 45 minutes, 45 of the 48 regulation minutes. You saw Romeo Langford get up to 36. They played this super, super tight. Basically, Robert Williams, lost minutes as a starter because of his poor play and foul trouble. And they filled those with Grant Williams and Al Horford playing kind of the smaller 4-5 combination. But they went really tight everywhere else because they do not have any confidence in the other guards and wings that they have on this roster. So if Smart doesn't play, do you think we see something similar tonight against the Clippers?
Yeah, I think so. Well, obviously, I expect Time Lord to be better after the game. Udoka didn't straight throw him under the bus, but the comments just kind of reading between the lines kind of threw him under the bus. Was talking about how they had a whole film session on, because as we've been saying, even people know the NBA extremely well, don't know who some of these guys are. So the coaching staff had drilled into, who is Greg Layman, who is Chris Silva. They kind of gave him a brief scouting report, and Udoka was really pissed that Robert Williams kind of was just closing out on guys he shouldn't close out on, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I expect him to be better. We saw he was playing great before this dud here too, so I expect him to kind of bounce back there. But yeah, it should be pretty similar. Jaylen Brown's in a really good spot. Obviously, Peyton Pritchard's going to play a ton of Smart Can't Go. It sounds like a day-to-day thing. And Romeo Langford hasn't been playing great offensively, but he's been pretty helpful defensively. You see the stocks he's had. He's been pretty consistent there too. So
my takeaway here would be if Marcus Smart is out, be ready to take some shots on these mid-tier and upper-tier Celtics values, just because they're willing to play these guys a ton and they're not really confident in the other options on the roster. So keep an eye on Marcus Smart's availability. It's a big one tonight from a DFS perspective. New players that are out are added to protocols, and more keep coming. And they just took Boban, Mike, and I just can't anymore. The health and safety protocols took Boban. Boban is a national treasure, even though he's not from this country. And I'm very, very upset. I really don't even want to do the show anymore.
Yeah.
Just going to go watch John Wick 3 and finish out the day.
I got to add real quick, the new State Farm commercial with Boban. Have you seen that one?
I haven't yet. I saw him tweet about it before Christmas, but I haven't seen
it yet. He's doing the Respect Wood from Curb. It's the best commercial ever.
Love it. Okay.
I'm talking about worlds colliding. My favorite show and my favorite player doing a commercial together. It's so good.
Okay. Lonnie Walker moved from available to doubtful. So it sounds like we're not going to have him tonight for the Spurs. Spurs are, playing the Miami. Well, they're playing the Austin Spurs dressed up in Miami Heat uniforms, along with Tyler Hero and a few other guys. What do we think Lonnie Walker's absence does to the Spurs rotation tonight? They're without DeJounte Murray, obviously. Mm-hmm. They have been willing to go a little bit deeper into their bench. They've got guys with Trey Jones and Bryn Forbes, and they're not totally decimated, so they can cover this. But who do you think benefits from the absence of Lonnie Walker?
Definitely Bryn Forbes. I think they're going to want his shooting. I think that at least before this, I was thinking that Devin Vassell starts and gets the Hero assignment because, these guys, Keldon's a good defender, but not against a guy like Hero who's, really perimeter based. So I think Vassell starting makes a lot of sense. We've seen Keita Bates-Diop kind of get cut down. So taking Lonnie out, you could see a really high ceiling out of Devin Vassell if he kind of gets it going here. He's been playing really well. So
he's also a guy that could be out there if the game is out of hand late too. I don't know that for sure if he's starting, but there's a chance.
Well, they don't have Kickoff, so that cuts one guy down too.
Yeah.
Trey, Primo, Weiskamp, Londale, and then maybe.
It's possible. I don't think it's likely. I think it's probably KBD in that spot.
Yeah.
But it's possible. So Vassell's kind of interesting. McDermott, he's just not that sexy of a DFS play because he doesn't have huge upside to him. But he benefits from minutes. All these guys benefit a little bit. I think it's going to be tough to get super excited about the Spurs. But a cheap guy that would be Vassell. I think that would be the guy that potentially could do it. Yeah. Okay, we're going to be without Brandon Boston for the Clippers. We were just talking about the Clippers who are facing Boston. We were just talking about their opponent, Boston. So no Boston against Boston. There was Boston on Boston crime last time these two teams met when he went for 30. What are the Clippers going to do? Because they're pretty shorthanded, obviously, without Paul George as well. How are they going to solve? Are we going to see Xavier Moon more or players we've never heard of until 3 days ago?
I was watching that Clippers game and I was like, oh, Xavier Moon. I wonder if that's Jamario Moon's like nephew, and it is. I was like, oh my god!
You know who
so cool.
Jamario Moon is? Shout out to you as like an old school fantasy player, because Jamario Moon had a run with Toronto for it's not even a few years, for like a few months. That was really exciting for roto-based category players.
Yeah. Shot blocker, super long, fun to watch. One of my favorite kind of low-key players.
So how do the Clippers handle this without Brandon Boston?
So just kind of a subtle thing here. Ty Lue kind of threw Keon Johnson under the bus. He talked about having a lack of ball handling after Eric Bledsoe. Obviously, Eric Bledsoe's in a pretty good spot. Like, if they could play well, I think Bledsoe has a pretty good upside here, even with Marcus Smart. Like, Keon is smart plays, but if he doesn't, it's even better. But so I wouldn't be surprised if Keon gets cut down. Like, way back in November, Lue talked about like grooming Keon as a point guard, and like it almost sounded like he's just like, all right, this isn't working. So they brought in Xavier Moon. I think Xavier Moon has a chance to be in the rotation. And we saw in this last game, I mean, you see the bench minutes, they pulled the plug quick. It pretty much got pulled, basically in the third for a lot of guys. So that's something to keep in mind there. You wouldn't really be attacking it, but that's something just to think about. And then also, he said he played Marcus Morris too many minutes. I think he played like 19 first half minutes or something high in this game. Lue said he played him too much, but he's going to want to play him again. So they need a scorer here, man. I mean, Terrence Mann, as much as I love him, he hasn't quite clicked as a create your own shot. Bledsoe's not really that guy anymore. So Marcus Morris is in a really big spot here, just with the offense they're going to need to produce. So I do kind of like him quite a bit if his minutes could be really solid. And I expect him to be, especially without Boston, who's kind of his competition for minutes. Like they're real thin on just pure scores. So if Marcus
Morris and Kennard are the two guys that can kind of fill that role a little bit. So we'll see if they can step up to the task tonight against Boston. Some players that are returning from protocols or injury. Wayne Ellington was a late scratch last game. He should be back tonight for the Lakers, according to the Lakers. We also got a nice report on the Lakers that Ken Bazemore and Austin Reeves have cleared protocols, but are not ready to play for conditioning. They might be back on Friday. Nice to get that information, like nice and clear all at once, that they've returned and they're not going to play tonight. They've cleared protocols, and then 3 hours later they're not going to play. Is driving me mildly insane.
Oh my god.
So okay, Wayne Ellington's return, I don't think it makes a huge difference, but we have seen the Lakers go super, super small and super condensed, right? No Dwight Howard last night against the Rockets. As you said, it'll be interesting to see if they try to do that on a back-to-back against Steven Adams. Like, that's a lot to ask for LeBron's body at this point in his career. I know, I've had an active last few days and been playing on tennis courts, and I can't do it. I'm 39 and Bron's almost my age. So, the two of us are very similar athletes. How do you think he'll be able to handle the back-to-back tonight?
We'll see, right? I'm worried a little bit. Did get the probable tag, so I have a little bit more concern in that probable tag than normal. So that's something where, it's an 8:00 game. There could be something happening there. So I would kind of keep that in your back pocket. It would be a really good spot for Westbrook if that did happen. But again, I'm expecting him to play, expecting the same lineup just because it looked pretty good. Granted, it was against the Rockets, who were probably the best team to do that against. So we'll see. But we'll see if Wayne Ellington coming back will cut down Malik Monk, who played 40 minutes last night. Just crazy. And he was looking good, man. Had a nice dunk. Definitely. He's been great, really, since he's returned, too. Yeah. So I wouldn't expect him to get cut down too hard. It would probably be more Collison. Man, Taylor Horton-Tucker just came out like gangbusters, has lost all of his momentum with Monk coming in. Monk is just a better fit right now.
He provides shooting and spacing. Taylor Horton-Tucker needs the ball in his hands. Taylor Horton-Tucker needs to kind of evolve for this team and this roster to be a defensive-first presence that can develop into a spot-up shooter. And he was hurt early in the season, so didn't get to develop in that way. And so I think he's kind of an odd fit that you're waiting now at this point for one of LeBron or Russ to sit, and then he can get the ball in his hands a lot more. But until they sit, it's probably just not going to happen for Taylor Horton-Tucker at this point. One of the only teams not to submit tonight on the injuries, even with some of these teams on back-to-backs, is your Oklahoma City Thunder. What do you want to say here, Mike? They're 14.5-point underdogs against the Suns. I don't even know why we're talking about them other than your particular love affair with the Oklahoma City Thunder. So,
they played the Suns tight. Last Saturday or Tuesday, whatever it was. They played them pretty close. The big rotation change was Olivier Sarr. He was the first big man off the bench, and he
full bozo.
Full bozo. Yeah, he's been bozo indoctrinated, but he was bouncy, man.
Bozo with a French accent. Bozo.
Yeah, bozo. Yeah, so that I definitely I'm into him. It's something to watch. Kind of cut down Roby a little bit. We'll see. I mean, it makes sense to start the big bulkier dude against JaVale, right? So something to keep an eye on there if you want to galaxy brain it and play a guy that literally probably nobody's heard of.
All right. I think that's a good ending point for this wonderful show filled with bozos. The two lead bozos, myself and Mike Gallagher, will be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. We hope you guys are having a good time out there and enjoying and getting through this NBA season. It's tough, but we try to have a little bit of fun with it. If you are subscribed to Established Run's premium content, it'll be myself and Gary Hartman, the return of Gary,
Gary's
back on the mic tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern for the premium DFS show. If you are not subscribed, we're running a holiday sale. So you might as well take an opportunity to get a little bit of a discounted price tag to get into the content, whether it's on the DFS side or the prop side. We're running this holiday sale through the end of the new year. So now's a great time to subscribe to Established Run. If you're not subscribed and not interested in that wonderful sales pitch that I just laid out, you could at least do us a favor and click the like button on this video. You could even smash it if you'd like. And you could also subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all the notifications. Make sure you're up to date when we are going live on air. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern covering Thursday's small slate for the injury report analysis, health and safety protocol show with myself and Mike Gallagher. Best of luck in all your games tonight. Enjoy the NBA games. We'll see you guys tomorrow.